she led vocal rehearsal like super well. She's high 8, but she just really knows how to take charge and lead, and it was just really impressive because I've never been in a position where she's been the leader, but she's just really good and very creative with where she places like harmonies and very specific, which I like because you can use that, just creates a lot of dynamics and stuff. So she did really good leading vocal rehearsal, and then also her verbal transition was just super good. Like no trouble at all. There's no like fear in it. You could tell that she rehearsed it, and it was just like very natural, and it went over really well. So
you were at Palm?
Yeah.
For morning, right?
Yeah, Palm AM, yeah.
Who was your vocal team?
So it was me, Heather, Princess, and Andrew.
Musa, okay.
Yeah.
How did you feel people were, like, so other than your observation, you felt like people responded to her, like experienced her well in her direction and
on the
vocal team?
On the vocal team? Seems so, yeah. I mean, I didn't actually ask any of them how they felt about her doing it, but I experienced her well, and I think, yeah, I could ask them, but I assume
I was just curious, like just observation.
Oh yeah, they seem to take her leadership well, and Andrew and Heather are both super like cool, so I mean they're not gonna be a problem. But yeah, she did really well.
Awesome, good feedback. Thanks. Who's up next? We're just celebrating 10 weekend. Any hot topic spots? Do a quick eval.
So I had a couple of Rogo leaders, but Stephanie led vocal rehearsal, and she was still very much like looking to me during that to like speak into things, but it was like her first time doing it. She said she was kind of nervous, so I talked to them afterwards about a few things, with some feedback on like leading vocal rehearsal and everything. We did a lot of just doing stuff a cappella, like Eddie was talking about recently, and I told him, I was like, yeah, that's been really helpful to me, because we're just kind of playing through the songs, and you couldn't really hear everything, so then that helped them out quite a bit. They were like, yeah, that's amazing, they're just honing in on things, and so that was cool. And Anthony, he led on Thursday. He didn't, since we had to switch things up, he didn't end up leading on Sunday.
Was Ken scheduled to play drums?
He was.
Oh, okay.
And the only thing I noticed about Ken is he was very tired on Thursday. I think from work and everything, he just was really tired. But he still brought it. And then Anthony was like, I had a lot of feedback from rehearsal, because he came really prepared. He didn't do so much the verbal transition during Thursday, but everything else is great, and you can already see that people like respond to him as a leader on that campus. While I was there, like people weren't coming up to me asking me things, like they're asking Anthony things, and that was really telling. And since we had to do the switch and everything, we brought in Mark Segura. And then we switched around, and the team still was just awesome. Like I don't think you would have been able to tell all the switching that happened.
Awesome. We didn't have like such a agile team, like from Thursday to Sunday.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's really cool. Hi, Becca.
Did you hear?
I got it.
Oh.
Got it? You can hear us?
And you.
Hey.
Oh, look at that.
How was your weekend? Anything you're celebrating specifically, or we need to talk through?
Aubrey was awesome. Aubrey Shibley.
Yeah.
She's great. Definitely celebrating her. Sunday was a little bit rough with the band, and in hindsight, I would have done a couple of things different. We were.
Can you sing that for us? Like, what would that sound like if you? Sorry. I just keep going. Never mind. Keep going.
Oh, hindsight, I get it.
Yeah.
Having two different worship leaders on the weekend was hard because, there were just a couple of changes that threw the band off. Like things that Papa Level communicated on Saturday night, but there was like one other chorus change, and then we didn't have time to run through everything. And then from then on out, people were just like, wait, what? We don't know what to do. And so even though I like called things out, like Chris missed an ending, and Aubrey like forgot we were doing a drop down chorus, and like literally something happened every service. Like nothing super disastrous, but enough to be like I didn't feel super comfortable. And I had to have a hard conversation with a vocalist about her outfit, and those are never fun. So, but East Valley's awesome. Like, I love being there. The flexibility of the team was really great. Everybody was like glad to be there and really supportive. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Way to have those hard conversations.
Thanks.
Maybe as we get into summer, it would be worth sending out that dress code.
Well, and that's what I put on my eval, was just like over communicating like almost every week until everybody hears it. Because it wasn't an issue of like not being covered, it was an issue of the clothes being too tight. And then especially with girls, like, something that, I don't know, Danielle can wear somebody who her, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just different. Like it's different for every person. And so like the girl that I talked to, he was even like, well, I was wondering if I should or shouldn't, and I was like, if you're ever just wondering, like, just
probably should.
And just having those conversations on the front end, and rather than having to wait till the weekend. Like it was at the point where I was asking Pastor Adam if I should send her home.
Dang.
And Adam was like, no, I think it's okay, but it warrants a conversation after.
Okay.
We just need to have like a stack of worship clothes.
Yeah.
Just have uniforms
For everyone. Choir robes in those
Oh, you got a
situations.
creeper. Watch it.
That's why choir robes are a thing.
Oh, Drew's creeping.
Why did we get rid of those?
I have a really quick question off topic. Can I ask real
Yeah,
quick?
go for it.
Are the main plans still set on the Hunter Park plan, and then we're dragging everything over from there? Okay,
No.
how
We're
are
gonna
like
talk-
plans getting set out?
That's
Yeah.
part of what we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna go through it later. Are you gonna be here through the meeting or?
My class starts at 11:30, so I won't be able to be here through the end.
Okay.
If Amber, if you
I'm recording, so she comes back on.
Yeah, we're recording, Becca. So make sure you get it. Okay.
can just put it in the notes when you guys cover it.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Who's next?
I'll go.
Yeah,
Oh, you go.
I was gonna follow up on
Saturday.
Aubrey.
Oh,
so.
you should.
So I was at East Valley on Saturday. And I thought Aubrey was a great vocalist as well. She had experience at a previous church leading, so I was like encouraging her to prompt the church. Some things she would say were like kind of awkward in the timing of it, so like coaching her through that.
Give it. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
It wasn't too bad, but it was like sing this out, and then it was a whole other progression before the verse. And I'm like, okay, wait for it. Here we go. So it was like minor stuff like that. But she did miss a lot of entrances as well on Saturday night, and I was trying to figure out if that was her being overwhelmed because she had a lot of songs to lead. Because we tried to keep everything in the same key. Becca was going to take some songs on Sunday. So I was trying to walk her through that, and like also say it was okay because she was super nervous. But overall, she's a great vocalist. She did express that she wants to do more later on in the future as she's on the team longer.
She's only been on for how long? Last round of auditions?
She auditioned at Hunter Park in January.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
She's
she's
only
probably
started-
started in like February or
Okay.
March. She served at East
So it's
Valley
only been a
two,
couple
3
months.
times.
Yeah. So maybe the next bullpen training
Yeah.
or something like that.
I'd say so. But even Saturday was like, I wasn't super comfortable either. Like Chris had missed some cues as
Makes me
well.
feel a little bit better, to be honest.
Chris
Sorry.
Chris had missed a few cues, and he even admitted it. Like he wasn't like fully in the zone. So I don't know. Chris Ritchie. Okay. Yeah. I try to get him as often as possible. But and attendance on Saturdays is still really low. And energy is very low. Engagement is very low. I'm just being honest. So it's just hard. Like we're giving it all we have on stage, and we're not getting that response back. Even like through communication with hosts, and Adam said the same thing. So it was kind of rough. Sunday at Lake Arrowhead, I thought went really well. We had Thursday rehearsal up there, and that was my first time playing with Kenny and Steve in a really long time. So I just went in like saying, this is what we're doing. I broke down every song, gave them like extensive detail, and they nailed it. We had a couple passes between songs and transitions, and they came in Sunday like knowing and remembering their part. And I even threw like a curveball at them of switching up the flow of communion and how we did it. I'll come to the altar, and they still nailed it. Like I threw in an extra bridge and I said build, and they did it. So I was stoked.
Like in the moment?
Did you
In
say
the moment.
Oh, cool.
Build and then progression.
I whispered it because I didn't have the band leader.
Like into the microphone.
No,
Everyone in the church is like,
it was during run through, and I turned around and like stomped to my foot and said build.
Stomping.
Oh shoot.
But even that was my first time there in a few months. But even engagement in the room was like high, especially during Raise the Hallelujah. I was really surprised because it's a new song, but they were all clapping almost the entire song. But yeah, I thought Ian killed it during communion. They had a new host that did really well.
How did Ashley do on vocals?
Alyssa
Alyssa,
was there. She's great. Yeah, I was super thankful for her to drive up
Sweet.
from Redlands, and she nailed it.
Anything you observed, Garrett?
I thought Steve's engagement was a huge win. He was on background vocals, and I thought he did a good job.
Head up?
His head up was more than in the past. There still was like some glued to the page, turning sheets, which I thought was different for him. Usually he's got it memorized. But yeah, he prompted everyone to start clapping. And it was funny just to watch because Pablo was like, who said that?
I was trying to figure out.
He said it from the back row?
Yeah, so he's in the back. He was like, everyone clap your hands. Or something like that.
The funny thing is, everybody listened to him.
Yeah.
Literally, the entire
Everyone's
time started clapping.
Yeah. But it was just funny because it was like in the background, not at like a high volume, and then all of a sudden it just, and he was like hands over head, like.
Yeah.
It's
like Ken from the drum set. He's like, you want engagement?
Yeah. People were just like, oh, okay.
That's awesome.
It was good though.
That's cool. Yeah, we'll take it. We will take it. Eddie, how's it?
It was great. We didn't have anybody clap from the back.
Yeah.
Really good.
Joanna got a lead this weekend.
She did so good.
She did.
When did she leave?
She did King of My Heart.
Oh,
She's got the sweetest little voice.
She does.
Yeah.
That's
I was
not like the
concerned maybe
easiest
it'd be a
song
little
to
bit
make your
too
first lead.
timid or too, and she's great, dude. Nailed it. Super good. Led well. Engaged outside of the song. She wasn't just so micro focused on just leading her one song. She was like super engaged the entire time. It was great. She did good.
She was playing a good guitar.
You know.
Compliments it.
I forced her to play that thing, and
Oh,
she's
she
like,
playing too?
Taylor is a blessing.
yeah, the Lord blesses up. No, I guess he can't bless up.
I got some great feedback from Tammy, just about HP this weekend, and just really acknowledging Brittany and her, just how great she's doing and growing in her confidence, but just even her delivery and stuff. So that's really cool.
single time she's trying harmonies.
After the meeting,
Every single time.
she's doing really
And
well.
she's getting it. So
That's
it's
a
cool to
huge
watch.
area.
Awesome.
She's doing great. Teams, they're noticing being scheduled together a little bit more frequently too, and they
Mhm.
like it a lot. Like the chemistry behind the scenes was exponentially greater than it's been
Mhm.
because they're like, like they just feel safe.
Yeah.
So
Carly's mentioned that she's really loved like serving with the same
Yeah.
people. It's been really good.
And Brandon did took a co-lead with you.
I pushed him. I
Yeah.
pushed him good this week, and he did well. He,
What song?
He did "Belong to You" with me. I gave him the majority of the song, but I gave him some Tim Carson notes, and he took it and he did it. And he could tell the difference right out of the gate. He's like, yeah, I didn't feel like my voice was hurting and felt more full. I was like, stick with it, bro.
Yeah. It was easy to follow. I mean, it felt like, I don't know if he intentionally pulled things back or you coached him on that, but just really, like, runs were not, it was just very easy to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the moment too is like super helpful, not just for him, I think for any of our musicians, we'll say musician. Right on the spot, like as soon as we're off, I'm like, hey man, really great job, these things were good. Don't hold the mic out to the crowd, we're not at a JT concert, like don't do that, that feels like a little bit forced.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, just like little things like that, and
Yeah.
and he's like, oh no, okay. It's like in that moment, they're able to receive it really well, as opposed to like compiling a list and then delivering it at the end of a weekend or
That's so good.
whatever. So
Like coaching in the moment.
yeah, some
He,
simple.
he really looks up to you, like, in a respecting kind of, like, authority way. I mean, he's just made comments about that, like, your guitar playing, your ability, like, so hearing that from you is probably, you're probably one of the best persons to share those things with him.
Yeah.
Even, like, if I was to tell him something, it would be hard, because there's all this other stuff that, you know,
Yeah.
community and all sorts of, you know, but, yeah.
It's good. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. Who else are we missing? Okay.
I was at Montclair.
How is that?
It's my first time
How big
there.
is the TV at Montclair these days?
It was huge.
Praise the
It
Lord.
was huge.
Yeah.
It was bigger than this TV. It was gigantic.
If you're too tall, you block it.
They have the Woodcrest screen now size just in Montclair, right?
Yeah, no, it was huge. So, but yeah, I thought it went really well. It was, Penny was there with me, and so it was kind of like the first time they nailed down like a run through. And even like a couple of the team members were like, what's a run through? And so Penny's like, so, but you know, we talked through that, and it was felt very comfortable. We had an earlier call time than I think they normally do, so which I think helped with that. It was a smaller crowd. Apparently, it's like one of the lower attended services this last week than they've ever had, which was discouraging for Pastor Brett. But other than that, I felt like it went really well. Steve was really great with the sound. He made my guitar sound amazing. And so that was kind of neat, just talking to him, like, hey, what did you do? Yeah, he was amazing.
The guys have nails.
Yeah, he was incredible.
Is he the hire?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was incredible, and so he talked through with me like what he did with my guitar, because it really did help me
Yeah.
feel more comfortable, and just for me, I felt like it was a total win, because I felt like I've really grown in my guitar playing, and to feel completely confident being the only one playing and singing all the songs.
Like a boss.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just walked away feeling like I feel really
So
good
cool.
about that, except for like I was sharing with you, my
Yeah.
calluses are not quite
Mm.
where they need to be for something like that. Getting those a little thicker would help. But other than that, I felt like it went really well. I thought Penny really communicated with them like what needs to happen, and you can tell that there's some major growth happening there with like building that team up,
Okay.
and even just doing the run through was like, I think, opened their eyes to seeing how much that can really help you feeling more comfortable with, you know, with the services and stuff. So I had fun. Yeah.
So was there a run through and then volunteer service?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did like a full run through, and then we did the volunteer service, and then the second. So there really was like two services with a full run through.
And then what time was the call time?
The meeting was at 7:30
Oh, cool.
a.m. So
Nice.
I got there at 7, just because I'd never been there and I didn't know. I
Right.
wanted to
Yeah.
make sure I knew where I was going, but yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I think we have just like 2 more, but I don't want to shortchange anyone, but I want to make sure we have time for Danielle and Matt and Dylan. So
I can go fast.
okay.
Do you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say I didn't want to interrupt you, and my bell rings in 1 minute. So.
Bye, Danielle. I'm celebrating. Nick Moore did such a good job band leading this week. Like, he gave cues on cues on cues, and it was really good because we had Mike Schaefer drumming, which was rough. Not nightmarish, not train wreck, but he needs to just be like set up so strategically. I think Matt, I thought you were Matt for a second. Matt said it best when he said his listening to instruction was inconsistent, and that's a little scary. Like, band leader instruction after Thursday rehearsal applied to Sunday, like, it was just rough, and sometimes, and just like the intuition factor was like you shouldn't play while a host is talking, so we had that conversation. Just little things.
Unless the beat
but
is
like,
sick.
but all of a sudden, like, you hear this like Pat and David Shays going crazy, and I'm like, what are you playing? Okay, and then I can't yeah, but it was not at all like a terrible weekend. With my experience that I had before, which was our Cultivate event in San Bernardino, I was real scared, really scared. But knowing that we had a pretty good band set in place, so I'm just thinking David was just unpredictable too yesterday. That helped kind of catch the fall. And then Joshua Baker did a really good job too. So he led a couple songs, or he led one and co-led one, and he like prompted a couple things and did a few like very tasteful ad-libs. It was nice. It was like vocally, this was one of my highlights. I felt like the load was carried really well. There were 3 vocalists, me, Joshua, and Mandy. And it was just carried well, like shared well in the placement of each person's song and key. Just like, it was a really good, delegation of that. So.
If I just have one thing, like a takeaway that we talked about, is especially when you have a team member where you know they need more work, like sure they can get the job done, but there's some good like opportunity for growth. Balancing that with the fact that we want to be positive in front of the team and say, we're so glad you're here and you're doing awesome and stuff like that. Sometimes being so broad in your encouragement makes it really hard to be specific and you're challenging. Which I experienced because Thursday, and I totally, like, we talked about it, and I'm like, yeah, it's not like the end of the world, but it's something we can improve on in the future. Is her and Nick were like, oh man, Mike, you sounded great, man. It sounded awesome, stuff like that. In my mind, as the bass player next to him, I'm like, I can think of a couple of things, and so like I'm like, okay, but I can tell him afterwards. And because of that, I think because he had heard like, hey, you're doing awesome, hey, it's great. Yeah. Then I go say, hey man, can I give you some feedback? It's kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I specifically encouraged him in his preparation. I was like, that was something you did really well. But it can be misleading to like just say that when there's something else that needs to follow, like what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think that's like the next step for like some band leaders. It's like getting cues and making sure we're on track. Is like, yep, that is the good first level. The next one is like, how do you coach and kind of massage things specifically to the group that you have that week. I think I just learned in that I'm like, oh, like we have to be, just like we need to be specific in our coaching, we have to be specific in our celebrating too. It's not like, you did a great job this weekend. It could be like, man, I really appreciated when you did this. So that way when you say, and this wasn't that great, then it's not this like, well, hold on, I thought everything was great. So just notice, I was just thinking about that. That's probably applicable across the board as we kind of grow in our coaching in the moment, is to make sure like, we need to celebrate, we need to make sure and be encouraging and stuff for sure. But as you do that, just really continue to think of like specific things to be encouraging.
Yeah. That's really good.
But it was a good weekend. It was just a little loose. I would say.
Eastville Soft Launch.
How's that band? That band do okay?
The band did great, yeah. So we had Richard, my man Richard Cochran.
Yep.
And Melissa Barrett.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
So they're really just great to work with. I mean, they're very solid, awesome. Both their families were all there at the soft launch, which was cool because they were 50% of who was there. And, we had like 40 of our. It was our team's kind of day, right? So all of our people were either practicing serving, or attending. So we had like 80 adults or something like that. Our system is dope. Like, it sounds real good.
Nice.
The system for that room. The room does not sound real good, but the system sounds really good. Thank you to Eddie for all the equipment procuring. We appreciate that. So the guitar sounded awesome. The microphones sound great. Like, hearing wise, from the ear perspective, is good. We don't have the ability to control mixes yet, so that's a kind of downside. Hopefully by next week, they have to wire in some stuff to make that possible. We don't have monitor in the back with the lyrics ministry, and so we were a little bit just in faith. But that should be here next weekend as well. So like, there was a lot of things that it would have been great to practice soft launch with the fullness of our, but we didn't have all of it yet. So you guys can just be in prayer for that, even for next weekend too. We didn't have all of our kids' carts for our kids' areas. So there's just a lot of the soft launch would have been nice to practice with the thing. We don't have the thing yet, so. It'll be interesting this weekend with a fuller band to see how it even sounds with a full kit. So Richard was on cajon. The cajon acoustic 2 vocal actually sounded really nice in that room. We'll see how it is with the fuller.
What's your max inputs there?
8.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
But the max stage room.
Yeah, we expanded that back too, which is good. Yeah, exactly. We pipe and drape. We're working on that. Our highlights for sure. Rachel Pounders, our production leader, and she is so great. You guys are really gonna like working with her. I think her attitude is awesome. It's just complete, like, we can do anything, everything's possible. We did the thing today, guys. Like, she just kept saying that over and over. She's like hyped. She's really, really great, and she knows her stuff too. So one of Sarah and Jaime Legaspi, I think is how they said the last name. Their son, I'm not sure if he's 13 yet, but whatever. She literally first day serving ever at all. She has him doing like stuff on his own with Isaiah. Like, the screen can only be lowered from the stage by hitting a button. Okay, that's where we're at with the screen. So he's like up there behind a pipe and drape, trying to hear when it's the right time out in the room, and and our lights also right now hitting a button on the stage, and there's no like gradual fade in. It's just they're on or they're off. So it's like you stand there and it's like boom, like we're starting. And I'm not kidding you. That's what it's like. It's like on and off. There's no little dimmer switch on those things. So all in all, though, I feel very comfortable with that. That's going to be great. I think the launch team has given us good equipment. We've gotten great instruments and everything over there. The sound is going to be good. It will be interesting to see how that room sounds with crashing cymbals and bass and guitar and another guitar and vocals and everything. So, because like when y'all think it is a lunch room. Like, we're not like a multi-purpose room. Don't try to dress it up. It's a lunch room. We're at an elementary school cafeteria. That's the room we're in. Like, there's a milk fridge that's humming in the background. I'm not kidding you. It was literally in front. Yeah, right. It was by the stage. Right. And he's like, do you guys want us to maybe move that somewhere else? I'm like, yeah, let's move that somewhere else. People are getting like milk and service. Anyway, so all in all, it was good. We'll see how this weekend goes. We won't have Thursday rehearsals on site. We won't even have a midweek opportunity to use the location until hopefully the beginning of next year. So we're gonna just have to be kind of creative.
Are you rehearsing here?
Yeah, rehearsing here for now, but really want to not have that be the ongoing plan. Hey, come worship in your community, but practice at Hunter Park.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. Thanks for
some things to kind of figure out and troubleshoot, but.
Let's transition. So Danielle, would you go ahead? Probably good for us to take some notes on this, or are you sharing anything?
I'm gonna try. Yeah. So campus worship leaders, this is gonna be for you mostly, but good for everyone to know. Grab your computer because we're actually gonna do this together. I'm gonna walk you through this step by step. We're talking about importing set lists to your plan. So we're no longer using Hunter Park.
9224.
We're no longer using Hunter Park as. Okay. master plan for their teams, but also have, as we're moving towards standardizing and approving the weekend program from all like worship, communications, production, wanting like one place where all of that information is being kind of accessed from. So for accountability reasons, but also just for clarity, so there's not like, is this a note for Hunter Park or is this a note for everyone, some of those things. So we're then gonna be importing our set lists into our plans a different way instead of dragging things over one by one. Just to be totally honest with you guys, as I've been kind of looking at the plans, I'm noticing that we're just dragging over maybe or importing items instead of the notes that are included underneath the plan. And those notes are really crucial. They're notes for production, they're notes for the communicators, they're notes for you as the worship leaders to know how to lead your set. And so instead of dragging things over where things can get missed or moved, we're just gonna import them, which is a new process for us. So there's a step-by-step way, and I'm gonna follow up with like a doc for you guys to follow so that you guys can kind of go back to this, but I'm gonna walk you through what that looks like for this weekend. So go to Planning Center, pull Planning Center, and go to the like home page where it's just illustrated. Why are you doing this?
Wi-Fi are you on? Yeah, let's move over.
Anybody seen any of those movies?
How to Train Your Dragon was a
Oh yeah,
big end to the franchise.
That was such a sophisticated statement. It was a decently good end.
Awesome. Okay, so go to Planning Center and you're gonna want to click on Adult Ministries. And then go to Weekend Services. If I'm moving too fast, just let me know. And this is where you'll now find all of every campus plan for the weekends are all gonna be here. The very first thing you need to do is click that drop down button for Network Weekend Service Programming. This is where you're now gonna find your set list for the weekend. If it wants to look. Pull up the week that you are looking at. So always please first go to that plan and take a glance and look at all of the notes, read through those things. Wait, this is not.
Are we doing the 12th?
Wait,
or
11 to
12.
sorry.
Okay.
Let's say 5 and 6 if 6 is a Monday.
Penny's working on some date things, so dates are kind of wonky, but follow along with the closest date possible until she changes that. So pull up your plan, go ahead and scroll through, take a look at all of those notes. We're also kind of noting some song options, keys options in the led by section, so there's not like a million notes underneath each item. So once you look through that, you're gonna wanna go back to plans, so you can just click that plans button at the top. Now go to your actual campus plan. I'm gonna pull up Palm Sunday morning, and I'll go from there. So click May 12th. And you're gonna want, before you import your plan, for now, because we've already imported some templates for weekends, there's items in there. We're gonna do away with that, but for now you're gonna need to go in and kind of delete those one by one.
Sorry, for our own plan.
For your own plan, go to your plan,
Okay.
your campus
If you
plan,
don't-
so that
And
you
you want me to
still,
start deleting
What
stuff?
if you dragged over songs already?
go ahead and delete them right now, yeah.
Or delete all button?
There is not a delete all button, so this is kind of the time, it's not that time consuming, but this is the annoying part of the process for right now. On a note, just for you guys, it would be better to not drag over songs, to not import a plan before you've heard from Pablo or I that the set is final and you have a thumbs up, because we're constantly making adjustments and adding in notes, waiting to hear things from some outside kind of departments before we approve those. And if you import a set, you're probably gonna have to go through this process and delete it all and then re-import, or have to filter through, okay, which notes did I miss? And that's just, it's more work on you guys, and we're working really hard to get those sets out in advance and let you know when they're done.
Is there like a time frame when you guys know that you have it all like lined up, so that you don't, like, we don't even have to ask until Monday at 5, or I don't even know, is there?
We meet and we plan out for, right now we're doing like per series right now. And then after he and I meet, we then meet with Melody and she approves all of the set lists. And we're trying to do that weeks out in advance. Right now we're kind of playing catch up and working ahead. So we're only a few weeks in. I think we have the whole set through
This entire series.
Why does it keep doing that?
So this entire series is approved.
Yep.
Yes.
The entire
next
series.
2
Okay.
weeks.
Yeah.
Cool.
So those can all be imported.
Yep, so it's gonna all be imported. So it'll be this coming week and the week after. So if all of your items are deleted, you're gonna hover over this button on the right next to the matrix. It says import. Click that. And on the drop down, there should be an option in recent plans that you have viewed that says Network Weekend Service Programming for that particular weekend. Go ahead and click that. Make sure you deselect plan people, and you only want to import plan items and plan notes. Let me go ahead and hit accept. Look, all of your notes, your whole set, it's all there. Yay. So no more dragging, no more adding in things on your own. It's all here for you.
That's beautiful.
When the set lists get finalized, there is a likelihood, especially if there's sets that are a little bit like further away, like a couple weekends, we might be adding in some notes. But one of the things that we're going to be doing is communicating which notes we're adding. So here are your notes. If we decide, great are you Lord, we're not going to end with like a big ring out moment, we're going to bring it down. We will write those into Network Weekend Service Programming and ask you to refer back to that and to look at that and kind of let you know, we made some notes, some adjustments here. Throughout the week, please be going back to that network plan and just making sure your plan stays up to date with what that is. That is the approved plan. So no other plan should be referenced except for that plan. Hunter Park is no longer the plan that you should be referencing. It's the Network Weekend Services Programming plan. Penny finalizes and approves everything across all of the communication and production and worship. Those are all finalized by Thursday morning. So no changes really should be made from that to rehearsals unless it's kind of like an emergency type thing. We are kind of doing away with the This Weekend Service Programming doc in terms of production and communications and worship. That's no longer going to be what we reference anymore. It's going to be the Network Weekend Service Program. That's that I have to not going to say, but that's what we're going to be looking at. So for your scripts, they will be in the network program plan in the item details. So it'll be like if you look at, it won't be in the description, but it'll be in this kind of section. That's not a really great way for us to update things live. So we might create a separate doc, like Google Doc, just for us, just for our scripts, so we kind of know what we're saying and stuff. But trying to simplify things, trying to make things a little more clear, concise. Any questions?
What's the purpose now of the weekend programming Slack channel? So everything's here. How should we use that?
So the one that is like all Sandals Church staff, that is really going to be Penny's driving that, and that's going to be updates only.
That's weekend experience.
Yeah, weekend experience. So that's, instead of these like novel long messages of here's everything element by element, that's really just going to be updates, and everything's going to be on Planning Center. For what is on just our worship Slack channel, that's gonna be where we'll be sending out the set lists for these weekends are done. Do you have any questions? Any questions that, like, things that need clarification that maybe aren't super obvious on Planning Center? Asking those questions on that Slack channel is great. I won't be sending out really long updates on that anyways. That'll all be on Planning Center. So it's really just gonna be for here's updates, here's changes. And from this point forward, like we're looking at and kind of going back and making sure campus plans are up to date. But just always respond with something, just so that you got that. Like, hey, we're making this change. Hey, these notes are up there. Even if it's just a reaction with a thumbs up, it doesn't need to be a bunch of responses in that thread.
Yeah, let's just standardize. Thumbs up, you've seen it, we know, move on.
Yeah.
But your responsiveness on there is vital to us knowing that everybody saw what they need to see. It is not a scalable process to have one person or two people checking on everybody's plan to make sure they have the most updated information. So just thumbs up lets us know, you've seen it, it's covered, it's good to go.
Yeah.
Welcome to my favorite voice of all time.
That's awesome.
Prayers.
And is that a thumbs down if you didn't see
And
that?
I'm adding a reaction to what you said.
Thank you.
It's the prayers.
I thought it was funny.
Thank you.
And on this Slack channel,
Not this.
what we don't want to clutter it with a bunch of like thing after like a long thread. So like update, and if you want to comment, if you have a question on that, respond to it. Create a thread and comment on that one message instead of responding in this portion. My computer's really not happy, but here we go. So like, so she responded on here. How you can respond to that is literally reply to thread, and you respond down here, and then that will be kind of all of the conversations about that one particular note, comment, whatever it is.
Like ideally, even the way that Becca responded would have been in a thread
Yes.
to your message.
Yeah. So responding over here, and then just reacting is great. Any other questions? Do you have any thoughts?
You covered it. I think the process kind of seems tedious of deleting everything and then not just dragging it. But we even changed like the verbiage of the transitions of the welcome, so that's helpful for the hosts and the production leads as well. So I think it's really important to import everything.
Yeah, and we're gonna right now. All of those items are already in your plan because of how we used to be using templates and those sorts of things. That's not what we're going to be doing moving forward. So we're kind of like playing catch up in that sense. So eventually will not be, your plan will be blank. You'll have your people, you'll be able to schedule all those things, but the actual order of service will be blank. So you can just import it and you're not going back and doing these things. But for now, it just kind of is what it is.
With doing away with the service doc, is there a place where they're going to communicate who's hosting at what campus? If that's not a thing anymore, or is that just on us to?
I don't know that.
They should be posting, communication should be posting all of that information onto Planning Center.
Oh, okay.
So it should be who's hosting and what they're saying.
Okay.
And in the beginning, while this is changing, we need to raise our hands a lot and ask for that information because they're going to be learning as they go. What the problem is what happened baptism weekend was balls were dropped all over the place because campus pastors are like, weekend programming, read this doc from Stephanie, get on Planning Center, come to the service run through. Oh, and you're teaching. Oh, and you're doing. Oh, and the transition at the end doesn't look like it normally does. So, blue buckets were being passed, and then 2 minutes later, Ian's like, and now the blue buckets are going to be passed. Like, it was a disaster. So it's taking information and putting it to one place. But there's gonna be a learning process with that. So in the beginning, as we think of, well, how are we going to know this now? We need to raise our hands and go, how are you going to make sure? Because the communications team should really be listing here's who's hosting. Even if they want to put that somewhere in the network programming so that you guys can move that over, there should be a concise way to do that. Even if they're giving us information that we're just inputting into Planning Center. We just can't have a completely separate doc because then things are not there's stuff that's not getting communicated, that's not happening.
Yeah. So the only doc that you'll be referencing really from this point forward is just for your notes, your script notes. And we'll make sure to add that into the team drive. And then also, I have a step-by-step kind of for what we worked through today, and we'll add that into the team drive as well, so you can go back to that.
Danielle, are communications typically responsible for scheduling hosts and putting
Campus
that on planning
pastors
center?
are responsible for scheduling
Campus
hosts, 'cause it's usually
pastors.
them, and that's what communication has kind of delegated to them.
So do you feel like it would make sense to have the campus pastors either task their production, like we just need to think about that other gap to fill. So we need to know who's hosting. It needs to be on planning center. How do we make that show up for everybody?
Yeah, I think I can circle back with Stephanie and Penny on that.
Okay.
Because I think it would make sense for either us or production to do
Totally,
that.
that's what I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we just need to know who those
Yep.
people are.
Because that's one of the biggest holes I noticed when I hop on plans is like the worship leaders are assigning their local leads, but they're still just as host under, and so to bring clarity before going into rehearsal, like everything on the plan should be updated.
Yeah, and just so you know, like how I do things at Palm is I'm communicating with Fredo. I don't wait for those things to be put on planning center or on the doc. I'm asking him who's hosting this weekend if it's not you, and I'm making those changes. I'm kind of acting as the planning center representative for my campus, even though production plays a role in that. There's just, we have a different eye for things than production sometimes does. And so if you're seeing something that's not on there, just do it. Like that would be my recommendation is if you know your campus pastor is hosting and he's not on planning center, he hasn't scheduled himself or production hasn't scheduled, just schedule him and send him a request and plug his notes in there. It takes 30 seconds, but what it does is it adds immense clarity across your campus and it allows them to view the plan, because sometimes they don't work on planning center like we do, and so finding plans that they're not scheduled for are difficult. And so it helps them to see the plan and know what you're doing and know who's on your team. And I've just found that has been a huge help at Palm, and so would encourage you guys to do the same thing.
Really quickly, because I want to toss it over to Matt for some really important info, because you haven't gone yet, right, Matt? Correct. So if you have any more questions about that, check in with Danielle after the meeting. Once Matt makes his presentation, he and Delon are going to stay around for individual questions. We can get a lot in. But let me say these two things. We are an organization in a season of transition. During transition, there are two things that everyone has to do. You have to be proactive and you have to over-communicate. You have new people in new positions. You have people's positions getting moved. Here's a classic example. Tim's not doing staff meeting anymore. I check in with Kendall to say, hey, where's the worship request for the May staff meeting? Kendall doesn't, how does that work? So it's me not waiting to go, well, we didn't get it. It's me proactively keeping things on my radar. So as you are navigating this, please remember that in transitions, balls get dropped. Fewer balls get dropped when we are proactive and when we are over communicating. So your campus pastor, this is new for them. They might not have a meeting that looks like the one that we're having right now. So you're proactively checking in with them, engaging with them. You're over communicating to your teams for the weekend. Here's what we're doing. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that you're unclear about? Without those two things, transitions get sideways. People's feelings get hurt. People start working in silos. People go to workarounds. It can really adversely affect the culture. If you're proactive and if you over communicate, you can stop a lot of that from happening. You can act as like a barrier and keep things. I'm not mad at Kendall. Kendall didn't know, but Morgan knows, and Morgan's on the email, which I just sent you.
Got you.
So, and now Kendall knows, and everything's, we can keep moving. But that's from proactivity. So everybody kind of has to take on that mantle while a lot of shifting pieces keep shifting. So, okay, awesome. Matt, Richie, and Delon, I wasn't here earlier to say nice things about you for all the work that you did and what you just did, but I love you. Thank you. It's wonderful. Scheduling is the thing that makes us all say bad words. A lot of things make me say bad words, but scheduling can be one of them.
Yep.
Matt and Delon, their goal is to make you say less bad words because of scheduling. So pay close attention. They're going to walk through the presentation. We're going to go over by a few minutes. And then when you wrap it up, open it up for questions. But if you've got it, it made sense to you, you're on it, you know, you can go back to doing whatever you're doing. They'll hang around here. Not everyone has to stay in for all the questions is what I'm saying. So if you're like, I'm good, I got it, you can take off. If you need to hang around and ask more questions, you can. But I will hand the floor over to you.
Cool. All right, so we have what we're calling scheduling rhythms. Delon and I went to the whiteboard, multiple whiteboards, multiple times.
Yeah, you did. That collaboration right there, team. Guys. That's a value. We celebrate.
And scheduling is a weird thing to try to standardize because there's so many moving pieces and things happening, and a lot of our organization specifically, bless you, because we have primarily volunteers, what we've realized is when you're trying to simplify a situation with people, that's really hard because people are complicated. Even if they don't mean to be. Like, they'll get injured on an industrial machine, they'll move out of town for grad school, they'll decide to switch churches, they'll get sick or maybe just not show up. Like, there's a whole broad spectrum of reasons why, right? And so trying to nail that down into specific steps proved a little more difficult than we thought. And so what we've landed on is talking about how do we create healthy scheduling rhythms, and that's what we want to set as our standard. So we have added this morning to the policies and procedures folder on the team drive. There's a document you can follow along if you so choose. It has all this information and will be available to you at any given moment. So, like we just said, consistently scheduling full volunteer musicians is complicated and unpredictable, and we're going to scramble weekly to cover needed positions. So we made a new goal. And the goal in creating scheduling rhythms is create a groove. See that? There's rhythms. No, it's musical stuff.
Way to go, Matt. I affirm you.
That's right. So it leaves capacity for and drives us to increased communication and collaboration. Because we can't uncomplicate our situation because of people, but we can simplify and strategize to leave more capacity to address the complications together. And I think you can see that we're doing that, right? As we're scrambling, we are like pulling together to make this happen. But really what we're trying to do more than anything is to create better rhythms so that the scrambling isn't happening days, hours before when a solution needs to be reached. So 2 different sections for scheduling rhythms. We're going to have monthly rhythms and weekly rhythms. And when I go through this, it could be a little unclear, but what I want you to think is this week that we're in, this is like where you're starting from. So if we add 2 months or add 1 month or add 2 weeks, this is your starting point. So this week, I count as the weekend, so it's 11th and 12th. So when I say like in 2 months, literally 2 months from today, think about like what you're able to do. So as we start talking about this, what I just tried to clarify will make sense, but just so you know. So you should be able to do each of these like 1 day a week, and you're just taking again like 2 months, 1 month, all that kind of stuff from the day you're doing it. So today, 2 months from today, campus worship team. You should be able to schedule your campus worship team 2 months out from when you're looking to schedule. So today, that means I think it's like the 13th and 14th of July. You can do the whole month of July, obviously, but at the minimum, you should be able to say, what's today? Cool, 2 months from now, I can sit down today and I can schedule out anybody from my team for that weekend, that corresponding weekend. So how you're able to do that, and most of you guys already know this, but just to clarify, and this is more for future worship leaders than you guys, but you go to the adult ministries folder, weekend services, under that, you get the matrix button in the top right hand corner to get to that drop down menu. That's what it looks like. Yeah. So you click the arrow next to it to adjust the setting to how many weeks you want, both previous and next week's. Then you click the matrix button again and that will load all of those. And for people from your team, all you have to do is in each plan there's 1, 2, however many people needed. You click on that, and it will only bring up people on your assigned team that you lead when you click that. So that's how you schedule 2 months out. At any given moment, you can schedule. You're fully free to schedule anybody from your team in that way. There we go. 1 month out. Now, obviously, we have that like first of the month that we just passed like deadline. But really, the way it works out mathematically, like anytime you're doing it, if it's 1 month out, you should be able to schedule anybody from any other team. Obviously, deferring to currently making sure Hunter Park has a full team and has gotten there first. But so that's I think like the 10th and 11th of June, if my dates are correct. If we think about that in relation to this week. So you can schedule anyone from the general worship team, so not just your campus team, but anybody else that's available. So you follow the same steps for the campus worship team going to the matrix, except for when you go to each individual plan, you don't click on one person needed, you hover over and there is a little green thing that pops down that says schedule a person. And that's what brings up the opportunity to schedule anyone. You can search by name specifically, you can search by instrument, all that kind of stuff. So that's how you schedule that, and that's 1 month out. So those are our monthly rhythms. Those are the most like actual scheduling, placing people into spots that you're going to do. When we get to the weekly rhythms, that's more upkeep and making sure stuff is set for the coming weeks. So weekly rhythms, 2 weeks out, unconfirmed emails. These used to be called not yet responded emails, and I realized talking to Alon, I don't understand why it's needlessly complicated wording on that. So unconfirmed because people are unconfirmed. So what we've done is we've created a unconfirmed email template to send out. And so what you do, so for just to reference what it would actually be if we went to do it today, that would be 1, 2. That'd be the weekend of the 25th and 26th. It's a fun weekend so far. Try to figure out scheduling wise. And by fun, it's not really fun. So you'll hover over the envelope little image, bring up email, you click on email, and then once you go to the upper left-hand corner, when the email window comes up, you'll use the unconfirmed template. So all those templates, you click on unconfirmed, and then this is an example of what it looks like. So this is the content we're sending out, and it's standardized for everybody. We tell them that they're receiving, why they're receiving it, and asking them to do a specific action, and letting them know what's going to happen if they don't. So anybody that would be unconfirmed once we get to 1 week out, because this is 2 weeks out, we get to the following week, it's going to be the next action, which is going to be declining for people that haven't accepted yet. And so 1 of 3 things will happen when you do this. 1, the people will be like, hey, I looked at the plan and I'm not on there anymore, I'm declined, but I can totally play. Cool. So then there's a conversation of, here's like, are you getting emails? Why are you not responding? Like that kind of, and then you keep the person. Great. Another one is you decline them and you're able then to have a week and a half of time to fill that spot with someone else that can hopefully get back to you and confirm. Or you don't have someone to fill that spot and you're able to, again, have 2-week runway to adjust your instrumentation and plan accordingly for your arrangements. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so once we get to the next week, so 1 week out, this would be, if you're going by today's date, the 18th and 19th, that weekend. You go through and you decline for unconfirmed musicians, like automatically click on their name, select declined, and don't just delete them off it, because we want to actually show like what we've gone through. So if someone else is coming in to help you, they can see the work you've done already, or if Christina or Melody need oversight over any of like what people have done, then you can kind of, you're keeping track of like, yes, we have asked 3 bass players and they've all said no. Just a random, not good actual.
That did actually happen.
It's happening, right?
Hunter Park,
So, but then take a look at your team, assess what are the needed positions, and if there's possibility of filling those spots, yeah, let's try it. But if you schedule those needed positions, it needs to be followed up with a text and or phone call, not just a scheduling email, because we're at the point where we need a more immediate response and we can't wait for answer or non-answer for email. So then what that does is then the week of, We shouldn't be scheduling more people. We shouldn't have to be moving people around. But the goal would be that as the set list is finalized that Monday, we're finalizing keys, transitions, setting vision for our team, and then sending out any pertinent information, and that's our email for that week. So the week of, it's just setting us up for the weekend, and not, it's the goal to take all of our communication and collaboration that's needed to build these teams and move that back a little further away from the weekend that we're trying to do to give us some capacity for addressing that. Because it's going to continue to be complicated, it's going to continue to be work, but what we do is we can't take away that work, but we can leave more margin for it, so that we can step in and help each other with that. So that's 2 weeks out, 1 week out, week of. So they're just miscellaneous points as well. Something DeLon was really great at when he was kind of overseeing, had his hands on everything as far as scheduling, is he responded to decline, like every single decline email. And we're going to work on having some sort of standard email to start from, but we encourage you to personalize it. I mean, DeLon could probably speak to this, but I just would notice, I would see like emails, because I was copied to them, where someone would be like, oh, I'm out of town, on vacation, or my kid has this thing. Be like, awesome, like, thanks for letting us know. Like, hope you have a great time. Just stuff like this response of like, because I think a lot of people, they put a reason, they're like, oh, like, hopefully it's okay, don't be mad at me for, no, like, you have a life, you're a volunteer. Oh, son, good.
And now we're gonna watch a movie.
We will watch movies?
We will watch movies.
And the most important part for me with that was thanking people for the communication, to like try to really encourage that, because that's the biggest thing ever.
Ever. That's true.
That's a great idea.
Ever. Couldn't connect to that with TV. Okay. But then the other way is if a reason isn't given for a decline, that's an even better opportunity to reach out to them, because then when we have a reason, we can better address, like, are they out for the whole weekend? Are they only able to do this? Is there a personal issue that we can talk through that would enable them to serve more? Like, there's a lot of things that we can work through, and kind of, again, like Melody was talking about, the more we're proactive in filling that gap, the better it's going to be for our team, not just in filling spots, but in our relationships, especially as we're growing campus-based teams, to kind of build that together. And along those lines, we need to change the pre-made subject line, because it just always gives a subject line for planning things. We have to change those somehow each time, because you have to think our volunteers are getting email after email after email, and if it's just a date every time, even if it's a reminder, if it's here's the info for the weekend, like if it's just a pre-made weekend of May 25th, 26th, like that's going to kind of be just background noise to them at some point. And though they should, and they should go through still and be mindful of their emails, but we also want to set them up best if it's like something especially that needs to be have attention drawn to it. We want to make sure that we do our part to make that stand out, because they get a lot of emails with a lot of different dates, and they're not going to know which ones are important and which ones are not. And sometimes I even do like information, or this coming up this week. Like, it doesn't have to be anything overly like cute or creative, but you're more than welcome to do that if you feel you have the capacity for it.
That's really great.
Yeah, he has really
He
good
is.
subject
He's got good
lines,
stuff.
man.
Eddie
Makes
as
you
well.
want to read them just because they're so creative.
And then the last miscellaneous tidbit we talked through with Melody is the ideal would be Monday afternoon after this meeting would be a great time to knock all these out. Because our goal in having, like, even though it's a list of like 5 different things, you can get those done in like 30 minutes just.
Yep.
And then you're not spending a little bit of time every day on your scheduling, hopefully, but at the beginning of the week you're trying to get through things and just leave capacity for not just more communication and collaboration here, but for all of the other tasks that we're trying to do, so that it's kind of everything's just rolling like right away, and it's just something that's part of a weekly rhythm. Yeah, that is. I would go to the last slide that just has the title now, and it would just be a nice wrap up.
Oh, I've seen
Instead,
it.
the girl in the spider's web. So if you don't have any questions, or if you want to just be able to look at that doc in the team drive, that's totally fine. Because we're over time, I don't want to keep everybody for all the questions, but
Can I ask one question I think affects everybody across the board? So before we had kind of this process when you back up to the monthly scheduling where it's kind of everybody on the team is free game to schedule. The first step of that was to go to the campus worship leader and ask, hey, can I borrow this person? Hey, is that out the window now? Do you still want communication from campus worship leader to campus worship leader? It feels like that could be a time thing too, or
yeah, I mean, my understanding, you can speak into this a little more. I feel like once we decided the first of the month thing was to eliminate the need for all the extra conversations. That like once that's it, understanding that hey, 2 months out, 1 month out, like you should have had your teams, your people done, and so anybody who's not is free game.
So if it's before that point, because like there's no rule against like scheduling someone not for your campus before that point, then there will need to be the conversation. But after that,
Can I clarify? So it's not people who are on the general worship team, not your campus worship team, aren't free game after the first of that month. It's 1 month out from the date that you're looking to schedule now.
We're looking at setting like just the baseline. Like you can go over and above. Like after the first of the month, you can still do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would even say like 2 months out, like schedule that entire month with your team. But we're trying to create something that you can go back to be like, what am I trying to knock out today? Like not as the totality of like the exhaustive training. But we'd still say wait for the first of the month. But also, if you're thinking like, and you're just kind of in there and you're like, okay, 1 month out from today, I should be fine to start trying to fill some gaps. But after the first of the month, I think you can work on that entire month.
With general people.
Correct. With people that are not on your team. Your team, 2 months out, is highly encouraged, and please schedule ahead of time because we're realizing a lot that waiting to schedule people hasn't been helping them.
and to get the actual notifications out like early so that people have a chance to respond to them before the first of the month, so that we have a clear picture of like what you need to what you still need as a worship leader, you know.
And especially our Rogo leaders are now in a place where they can be scheduled in the worship leader role underneath your leadership there. So I think just even thinking through the summertime, creating capacity, if you guys need weekends off and things like that, the more we can get reps for them, the more capacity it gives you as a campus worship leader to have somebody step in and cover for you.
Not you.
You're not using.
And I would say just overall, like, keep all of these things in mind. Like, let's work on all of these things, but especially those weekly rhythms of 2 weeks out, 1 week out. Those I feel like are going to help us see the most change the quickest. Is that like Eddie and I working like last week on the 25th, 26th is way different, although still stressful, than doing it next week. You know what I mean? Like we need to like. And now that Ken's out, I mean, you know what I mean? And so, like, we know that things are going to go wrong, and so the more you can get ahead and communicate the culture change even to our musicians of what their response should look like. Because we even joked about, like, a high-level volunteer, like, being like, I'll get back to you ASAP, and then, like, days before that. And so it's like, those are the kind of things we want to change to be like, hey, I'm giving you a week. Well, I actually gave you 2 months, but now, okay, now I need to know this week. Okay, now I'm going to just assume you're out because you haven't responded in 2 months. Like I feel like that's a fair time frame, more than a fair time frame for people. And it's been funny when we were on that and really in that healthy like kind of rhythm a year or two ago. You'd be surprised at all the conversations that keep having like, hey, why am I'm declined coming up at Hunter Park this week? Like I'm like, oh well, you know, we sent you this email, and this email, and you hadn't responded yet, and so like in the email it says like this is how we're doing it because we can't wait for people to like. And then that change can happen for that person. Like in noticing like, okay, they're responding a little better. And even hopefully the people that just respond without thinking about it, that'll hopefully help them think through their response to it, not just, yeah, yes to everything.
So we are moving then from scheduling 2 months out and sending the notifications for 2 months worth to now sending notifications weekly.
Both. You wanted that initial?
Just to catch up, we should do 2 months out, but then from then on forward,
every
week
just
we
do
should
that
be sending
additional.
Every week you should be sending some notifications out, and that will change. And the thing that makes it easy for Planning Center choosing that for you is when you go to do the email, you email all people not prepared notifications, because that's only people that need to be scheduled. But that middle column is all, I can't remember what it's called, like all team members or something like that. But that and then everybody that's unconfirmed, like you check that box, and then it'll automatically apply whoever that is. Like you don't even need to. You don't even need to think through how many people it is each week, but it's just thinking unconfirmed, this email template.
Yeah, so I meant we're scheduling every week, not sending emails every week.
Right.
We
Yes.
should just be scheduling 1 week at a
Sorry.
time. After
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. After you do the month and then probably after the month opens up, you do a month. But then every week there should be follow up and change of some kind, but it should be 1 to 2 weeks out.
Yeah, I get that part. Just because what we have been doing is like we'll send notifications 2 months out, and then we'll wait all the way until like 2 weeks out and send another 2 months. We're not doing that anymore. Now we've set 2 months out, and now every week we're just sending.
Well, that wasn't really the ideal of what we were doing before either. The ideal was to send out all of them for a month, and to do that 2 months early. You know, so it's not like you're waiting 2 weeks, you know, before services. You know, it's still gonna have that 2 month gap, but it's also beneficial to do it, you know, with a month, you know, rather than week by week. I don't know. There's benefits on both sides, but doing it by the month, I feel, helps the worship leader to really see like, okay, this person can only do something twice a month, you know, so I can think about where I need to place them and think about where I need to place each person to fit their thing. If you do that weekly, then that's kind of a lot to keep up. And these rhythms are like things to make sure you have those in place. But if you do that ahead of time, then it's, you know, it's more beneficial, especially for Hunter Park, to have that.
Go 6 months. Okay. But Howard, then how would you recommend? Because so for me, how I'm gonna schedule, I have June done. I'll do July, and then starting next week, whatever the week is after July, I'm just gonna start scheduling out. So I'm always 2 months ahead.
Oh yeah.
So for anybody else, is that gonna be the same, or is it?
I think that's the standard.
That's what I hear you saying now.
Yeah. So every week we should be sending out, scheduling emails every week for 2 months out.
Because what we want to create, we're trying to create continuity. This is the way we do this across the board. As new worship leaders come on, this is the way we do this now. So if we've got a couple campuses that are killing it and this is their strategy, and then we've got a couple others like, I'll get to when I get to that's not what we're going for. So you guys have worked really hard to say let's for sustainability and growth. What we've been doing isn't going to take us to the next. This is what we need to be able to do. So I think we all need to really commit to that. And there might be that learning curve too. Like you guys are doing for questions.
And there's going to be conversations and questions, and it's not fully realized and perfect the way it is. But again, the goal is just to create the room for those conversations so that we can continue to develop it. Yeah. I would say I would still encourage like your initial scheduling of your campus teams. I would do the month at once. Whatever month you're doing, I would just send that month out so it's done, and then your weekly kind of keep up is like every week. Does that make? Because what I would do is like once a month, I would schedule an entire month or however many months we did at that point. Like we were doing multiple months, and then after that 1 week, every other week it's just like my weekly keep up stuff. Like who's unconfirmed, who do I need to fill spots for, what's the week coming up. Like it's kind of those 3 things you're looking at.
Are we allowed to do more than 2 months out? I mean, within limits, don't go crazy. Like, don't schedule on 2020, but like.
I'm good with that.
It's cool with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can double check like with Melody and see if she has an issue with it. But as far as what we like, I think the further ahead of time, like, as long as it's your musicians at your teams. I think a lot of people have appreciated that because the people that don't block stuff out way ahead of time are going to go, oh yeah, I'm not here that week, and then that's way better to have 3 months ahead of time than a week ahead of time. Yeah. Sorry, Nolan.
No, I was just gonna say the only objection Melody had to that was somebody seeing a lot of plans and declining a bunch of them rather than seeing a few plans and going, oh, that's palatable or whatever, and accepting that. But I mean, since she wasn't here, I just gonna say that was the one objection she had to that.
Yeah, I know that's initially like how we've been trying to do it since last fall. Has anyone gotten any feedback receiving whether people prefer that, if it's helped anybody feel less overwhelmed, or if it's made things worse.
I gotta go, guys. Sorry. Thank you.
Come on.
See you later.
Well, we're not gonna be sending them regular emails with 3 months worth of scheduling anymore. We'll send one that has a bunch, and then from then on out,
It's just gonna be one.
email.
Yeah.
But
Does everyone know how to send one email with multiple dates on it?
No.
Okay, so when you're in the matrix view with all of your weeks, you email from there, the little email button in the top right, and then you select what weeks you're sending it out. And so if you do that instead of in each plan, so Garrett is scheduled for 3 out of 4 weeks. If I go that direction, that means that he gets one email with all 3 of those dates.
Oh, cool.
Instead of and so that can be maybe a middle ground with figuring out how to not bombard our musicians with a bunch of different emails. Which is why I think it's helpful in the initial, like when you're scheduling your team, is to schedule like a month or 2. Like, I mean, I think especially like summertime, like I think it's actually good to have a scope of like the entire summer. I feel like that would be helpful for most people so they know like, because I know guys like high level volunteers like Adam Arts or like or Clayton or Ryan, like they want to serve and they're willing to work with the schedule of when they're scheduled here for the most part and do their stuff around that. But if we don't do that months ahead, then they block those out, and then they have to go by those and not by what we're scheduling them. Does that make sense? And it'll be a tension to manage for sure, like so that we're not overdoing it. But I think right now, giving them more, we're in the spirit of this whole thing of like giving more runway for things and more capacity for things. I feel like it's worth trying.
It does limit us a little bit with auditions.
That's true.
So that's the only real
just
factor.
as far as new people coming in.
Yeah.
I feel like we have enough people who would end up like holes that we need to fill. Because we're auditioning people are getting like 3 or 4 at a time.
Yeah.
You know, like
I'm pretty against that.
maybe it's just as we're auditioning, even though we just schedule them for dates that are after their new musician training already.
Yeah. Or they can automatically, when they make it on team, they can join that available pool of musicians before getting scheduled by so they don't have to wait for their campus specific
there's
team.
options. It does limit though, because if you schedule 3 months out, you get a dope drummer for Palm, then they're gonna have to remove somebody to get him in, or put him somewhere else that potentially has a hole. So it's just something factor. I don't think it's like it should be this or that, but it's just something.
So maybe there is an advantage of doing just 2 months out, knowing like if we're running auditions every other month or something, creating space or capacity for. I mean, we can see how it goes. It'll take a little while.
I think we can see how it goes. I think with the size of the teams at places like Arrowhead, Woodcrest, Eastvale, like we're gonna have spots available currently. I think in the future for sure. Like if we ever get to a point where everything feels like fully staffed and stuff all the time, then we'll find space for the musicians. Like we'll have to figure that out for sure.
I was gonna throw that out there just from like a further discussion point down the road perspective. You know, future campuses that are plants, not mergers with existing members that are now being integrated to the team at smaller locations. Like right now, my campus worship team is probably 1 or 2 people, and that's just part of where we're at with like people and so thinking about like what do we do when in another 2 months it'll be probably the exact same thing we're doing right now at Eastvale. No existing team, and that community may be smaller and slower to respond to worship auditions. So to get a full team of 5 or 6 people there, like right now I was just looking at just a further discussion point for the future. Like I'm open to suggestions. You know, maintaining our excellence. I've got a youth girl who hasn't been really serving. It doesn't seem like anywhere, but I don't know how I don't even know where she's at. But just thinking through, like the one of the Gatsby girls. Karis, but with an X.
She's a Woodcrest.
Yeah, so so I have no idea her ability, whatever. But I'm just thinking like right now.
I'm just saying I can
Hey,
give
Tommy
you some
left too. I
info.
don't know if you remember. We were just talking about who's leaving Woodcrest.
So, but I mean that's what I'm saying. So just for us to like think about down the road, like I'm open to. I don't know what to do exactly when it comes to.
Can't you now start pooling from all the teams? Like
yeah,
you can
but
look
there
at all
there's no. But like Okay,
so many musicians available.
That's my
where are all
point.
these musicians you're talking
That's
about?
my
Yeah,
point.
like,
Is
just
that
filling 100 Park
That's
with
a
me.
prophetic statement.
like there's not anybody available right now.
Yeah.
Like really, as I'm looking through the list, there's no female vocalist that's able to lead songs on their own for the next 2 weeks. That's not currently scheduled for the next 2 weeks, obviously, because we're 2 weeks out. So I'm just trying, like, it worked with Palm. And this is I don't have data on this. With Palm, 1,000 people go to the campus,
Yep.
and some of our key awesome musicians are attracted to that place. You've got a campus team. East Valley, you guys have built an amazing team out there. But it's a 900-person campus that has been around for several. I'm just thinking, like, at the beginning at least, when it's a 200-person campus.
Can it be
We
network?
need to help share.
Yeah.
I think that's the part where we.
This is my cry for help, by the
Yeah,
way.
no, I think that's the part of
Actually worried
we're
about
hearing
it.
it.
Adam Arts is gonna be there. Tommy, that's
Yeah.
But I
You know, all
understand
the
the
bass-
vocal
bass- yeah.
component. I think
Yeah.
that's part of where
Yeah.
we go. This is where we can share and come alongside as.
Yeah, that's the
You
only
know.
thing is like.
Just real quick, and then we need to wrap up.
Yeah,
The one thing that you guys, this is so great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This. I think as Melody's been talking about two of our key things on the weekends, like how do we measure the win, which is preparation and presence. I feel like this sort of process will help us with our teams be more prepared. So instead of making, I know you said final notes on Monday. I think it was to be my hope for our volunteers that we're not like today making all the band notes and adjustments for Thursday. I think we need to always keep in mind that we've got, like, let's say we get that done by the end of the day at 5. That really gives our band members Tuesday and Wednesday to like nail down their parts because they're going to work on Thursday. They're coming probably usually straight from rehearsal. So, I mean, are you hoping, Matt and Delon, that like as we work this process out, that like notes for this week for Monday should have been done by last Monday, so that the team is having at least a week from Thursday to Thursday rehearsal kind of thing to prepare? Because I know.
Pablo Danielle question.
Yeah, that's.
Well,
yeah,
I
that's
know
not
that's.
necessarily scheduling because.
Well, we've got two weeks of sets now, right?
Yeah.
So I think they probably go hand in hand. Part of it is.
When your sets are finalized, you can go ahead and start making band notes, and I would encourage that. Just being mindful that within those 2 weeks, there might be minor adjustments that are made. Like this last week, Claude asked for blog to you, like that's an adjustment. So, but as soon as they're final, like send an email to your team, let them know the sets are up there, that they need to begin practicing. We're letting them know about new songs in advance too. So
keys are assigned.
Yeah,
And I think right now we're working to set the minimum. Like if you do it beforehand, great.
Yeah.
That just consistently seems to be the time that that sets are definitely locked in by. Like sometimes it's sooner, but I feel like Monday is pretty consistently a cutoff date, and so that's why we initially said that would be it. But it can be whatever. We just want to make sure that it's ahead of time. That's like the main thing. And whatever day of the week that is, as long as it's like a couple weeks out and we're getting our teams, and we're trying to take on the problems. As long as we're trying to take on the problems a few weeks ahead of time, I feel like that's the main win right now. Cool.
Just a general apology on behalf of 100 Park. We probably just have to keep taking people from everywhere. Oh yeah, I work my hardest to schedule out as far out in advance, but
yeah, May's been really rough.
Yeah, it's
Do you have a specific position as a drums? Is it across
All
the board,
of them.
everything?
I'll talk to Melody, but I think we're almost to a point where we might need to start hiring musicians because we're that bad right now.
Oh, wow.
So, with Ken being down, with Corey being out, with bass players just, because like for like Clayton, right? I don't want him to feel obligated to ever play 100 Park.
Yeah.
I want like if he wants to play Palm, well, he play Palm. Dude, I want you to serve where you want to serve. But then we have no other bass players that are designated for each period.
I gave him a hard time on the night. I was
He
totally
accepted
kidding.
it. Yeah,
I know,
but
but
I
if you
wanted
need a bass player,
I said
like-
you got to choose, and I was like, we gotta do whatever 100 Park needs, but you get to choose. That was his choice, and I want to honor that choice. And for us to be like, hey man, sorry, I know you chose this, but you still gotta come serve 100 Park. That's like feels like so stitchy, you know?
Yeah.
So that's just kind of where we're at. We need
Also clarify, I actually enjoy the smaller, like the home couple vocals or just me by myself. I just don't want to do that if that's like not the rule. Like you need to have more of a band. Like I'm cool to be just chill and like next week I might have Tommy and Callan, and that might be the band. And I'm like, that's actually great because we don't have a place to rehearse. That's the same place we're going to be on Sunday. I'm cool with that. It's just that the network expectation is you need to have a full kit and a full. And if you don't, then that's a less of an experience type thing. I'm great with just being like, it's actually easier.
There's there has to be a process of getting there sometimes, like because we're asking for more positions and haven't added any musicians. So
and like in the campus launch process, what I've found is like sometimes the smaller team is actually really great because you're teaching them to sing and not just listen to music. And so both on Marina Valley and Palm, like the smaller like, hey, this is acoustic.
You were by yourself in the early days. I feel
it was just me for and it was like I'm gonna sing this first part. No, you need to sing. It's teaching them that. Like I think for launch it makes total sense to have a full team, but like honestly I think it really is helpful to have that smaller set.
I'm just like I said, I'm great with that. Unless somebody was saying like Melody or you guys were saying like, oh no, you need to have more people. Like I'm cool with.
I mean, our hope and our goal is full teams at every campus.
Right.
We can always start there, you know, and there's things that come up. So I was talking to Garrett about this too this past week. Is just being reminded, I think, of the resource that we have with each other. I mean, as much as everybody's doing their scheduling thing, but like that collaboration part of throwing up a message on Slack or like, hey, I'm really hoping for this weekend, you know, because sometimes another set of eyes that just doesn't fall on Delon or Matt, you know, just the collaboration part of like, you know what, I've got 3 female vocals I actually could do fine with too. Let me see if Stephanie's willing to hop over, you know, and then we can help bridge that.
Yeah, and to speak to that, sorry, one last little thing. Like, if you've noticed, like, especially the last couple weeks as we've run into different issues at different things that we're trying to plug, you've noticed, like, I've been trying to connect you guys more. Is that I'm trying to move us away from bringing DeLon into every scheduling thing because it's just not going to be healthy for him in the long run. But also, we want to empower you guys as we're moving to campus-based teams, like for you guys to communicate and collaborate as needed between yourselves and not necessarily needing to bring one of us in, especially DeLon, because he's scheduling for San Bernardino, for Montclair, and for Marina Valley. I mean, well, Anthony's doing some San Bernardino stuff. But he's helping with multiple things, and so the more that we can address those together, so it's like, you need help, and it might include taking or needing to borrow a musician from another worship leader, just feel free to have those conversations and collaborate in those ways. To where DeLon obviously is ultimately kind of like overseeing planning center stuff like that, but the more we can kind of relieve him of having to be in every one of them, I think that would be helpful.
Dope.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks. Thank you.
That's good news.
Go team.
Once I get out of this boot.
Yeah, I know.
In my acoustic.
Just down the street.
Yeah.
Christina to come sing.
Are you still, do you want to talk about this someday?
Yeah, let's talk about that. But not
Should we just reschedule Rogo Mentor?
Yeah, well,
since it's over already.
Sorry guys.
Anthony's doing it.
3 minutes on meeting everybody.
Did you get my Slack this morning about our meeting time changing?
I did not.
Matt, I have an idea for the 26th.
Okay. What's your idea?
Here, I'll look on my phone.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
By the way, Eddie, were you part of that thread? I can't remember.
I don't know.
Was part of the Slack thread.
Eddie,
So she's good.
no idea for you too.
She's good. She's good
I'm
to come over for the 25th, 26th to leave. Johnny's in at Woodcrest.
Cool.
So
now we can get a team.
what if we would Frankie and Joanna, do you think would be willing to happen? He could cover drums, which Ken is currently scheduled.
Yep.
And then we don't have acoustic, she could play acoustic.
Yeah, we'll sit down and look at.
Yeah, but we also didn't have
to
dates.
yesterday.
I don't know.
And he's like, yeah, do it over
June
here.
29th.
But,
Oh yeah.
okay. And then Matt, what if you came over from San Bernardino that week and Anthony led an acoustic set at San Bernardino on bass?
Yeah, I think that part of it is more of a
Do we need
Christina
approval for any
Melody
acoustic?
discussion, I would imagine. Well, it's just him being on his own. It's just him being on his own. I just want to make sure. I think he can do it, but
We just don't have enough. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like we
but I'm
don't
willing
have
to
enough
do
coverage
me, but
worship
yeah,
leader
'cause-
wise to man every robo leader. If like saying
if we have,
they can
especially if we
fill
have a
in when we're
robot
gone,
leader
they
that's
can't fill
able
in when
to
we're gone
be
'cause they need
competent
another
and
person.
fill the spot.
Sorry, what?
Especially if we have a robot leader that's kind of ahead a little bit and can totally take it.
And if they aren't comfortable with him doing it, he could maybe, if Moreno Valley's
Or you could
fuller
switch.
there, then I could go to San Bernardino.
Okay,
Mm.
go team. Look at us figuring out something weeks in advance.
Nice.
At least 2
That was
weeks,
good.
you know?
Are you guys doing lunch?
Yeah.
Are you guys doing lunch?
I could
I
do
brought
something.
Malone.
I could do something quick. Yeah. I saw a meeting with Taylor at 1:30.
Oh. Supposed to turn this off.
Lord.